One of the biggest questions surrounding the next Mass Effect game is, will we see our beloved Commander Shepard again? BioWare hasn't revealed who our next protagonist is yet, so I wanted to explore the obstacles surrounding the possibility of Shepard even returning for Mass Effect 5. It seems like Jennifer Hale and Mark Meer also don't know what's next, but are still eager to return as Commander Shepard.
Yeah, and I will say out loud, because everybody's wondering, we don't know what's next. Like both, I mean, I don't, Mark can speak for himself. I have no idea, but yes, I would show up in a hot minute.
we got lots of questions if you'd show up in a hot minute. And I'm glad to hear that you would show up in a hot minute. That's great.
I agree, but only under any circumstances.
A lot of people want Commander Shepard to return, but I think the more important question is, can our beloved Commander even come back? Personally, I think there is both an argument for Shepard to return and for Shepard not to return. So let's get into it. The first obstacle of Shepard's return would be the timeline. Back in May of 2021, after the trailer was released, Leona Rupert, who was at Game Informer at the time, did an interview and seemingly got confirmation regarding the timeline of the next game.
Obviously, we know Liara's much older. I would put her at now around 800 years, given off the trailer, and also I've confirmed that she's much older with the BioWare devs as well. So we know it's very much set in the future.
So, if this is true, it could make Mass Effect 5 take place 600 through 700 years in the future, which could line up with Andromeda, but I think the biggest question here is how much time has passed, and how would Shepard even be alive? So let's go over the timeline. In Mass Effect 3, Liara is 109 years old, so if Liara is around 800 in the next game like Liana says here, that would be roughly a 700-year timescale. So maybe Liara hung around the Milky Way galaxy for a while, helped it rebuild, and then went to Andromeda, but actually stayed awake during the 633-year journey instead of going into cryosleep. Maybe she'd arrive a few years after Andromeda takes place to help a more mature writer with all of those Andromeda story loose ends. Who knows, but that is kind of my running theory. Anyways, back to the timeline. The end of Mass Effect 3 takes place in 2186, and 633 years later in Andromeda, which is how long it took for the Andromeda Initiative to travel from the Milky Way galaxy to the Andromeda galaxy, is when Ryder wakes up in the year 2819. Now there's a lot of questions as to what the sequel could be, but let's specifically focus on Shepard. I'm going to talk about an Andromeda story spoiler, so if you don't want to know that spoiler, skip to this timestamp here that I put on the screen. When you near the end of Andromeda, you find out that Ryder's mother has actually been in cryosleep for about 633 years during the entire trip from the Milky Way galaxy to the Andromeda galaxy. So obviously we know that extending someone's lifespan via cryosleep is a possibility. So this could be a way to bring back Shepard, but only if the Destroy ending was canon, and you got Shepard's breath, and Shepard would have had to have been brought back from the brink of death following the ending of ME3. So even though we get Shepard's breath at the end, it's hard to imagine Shepard actually surviving that without needing some kind of Cerberus rebuild again. Now this is actually a popular fan theory, so I wanted to look into the statistics that BioWare released in 2021 regarding the end of Mass Effect 3. Here we see some official statistics on the ending choices, with 45% choosing Destroy, which is clearly the most popular choice. Unfortunately, there's no info on what percentage actually got Shepard's breath at the end there though. And then next we have Synthesis as the second most popular ending with 30%. And in third place is Control with 17%, and Refusal comes in last with 8%. So if BioWare did canonize the Destroy ending, that's less than half of the player base who would have their ending canon, and even less than that who had their Shepards actually take that breath. Logistically, how would Shepard come back after choosing the Control ending? Shepard becomes one with the Reapers losing their body. How could Shepard get a new body following that ending? And how could Shepard come back after choosing the Synthesis ending? Their body fuses with the beam and Shepard literally turns into particles. how could Shepard get a new body following that ending? Realistically, I just don't see them being able to write a future where Shepard has had a living, working body after choosing the synthesis, destroy, or refusal ending, and I think if Shepard were to come back, the only way they could do it is to make the destroy ending canon, which would ultimately negate and alienate more than half the player base whose choices no longer mattered. So realistically, while destroy might be canon, the reality is that the percentage of people who even got Shepard surviving is well under half. Personally, I can't see BioWare canonizing an ending to Mass Effect 3. One major reason is because of how replayable the original trilogy is, but mostly because I can't see BioWare canonizing a major choice that could negate your choice at the end of Mass Effect 3. Maybe BioWare will ultimately have to canonize an ending to even be able to advance the story, which we've kind of already seen being done regarding the Geth. As we all know, the Geth are wiped out in the destroy ending, but everything we've seen so far for the next game points to them being alive. So who knows? If they go far enough into the future, they can kind of write away our choices, which would all end up merging into the same timeline. The Reapers are dead, the Geth found some way to survive, the Quarians and Krogans are thriving, etc. But could they do this with Shepard? Could BioWare merge all of Shepard's different fates into one timeline where Shepard is alive? Obviously, I'm not a writer, so I don't know, but I do know that each player's experience with Shepard is unique, and fans have had a long time to think about Shepard's fate. Which brings me to the next issue of bringing Shepard back, the Fandom. The first Mass Effect game released 15 years ago in 2007, Mass Effect 2 released 3 years later in 2010, and with a rush production, Mass Effect 3 released 2 years later in 2012. This means that veteran fans were first introduced to Commander Shepard 15 years ago at this point, and if the next Mass Effect game releases a few years after Dragon Age Dreadwolf, roughly 18 years would have passed since then. Fans have had time to build their own headcanons as far as what happens to Shepard past Mass Effect 3, but it has all amounted to one thing: player choice. Players have decided what happened to their Shepard, and that also means that the fans have decided whether or not they're ready to move on. A lot of people do want Shepard back, but a lot of people also want to move on. Veteran fans have had almost 10 years to come to terms with the ending of Mass Effect 3, and some, not all, are ready for a new hero. Bringing Shepard back means that for the people who didn't enjoy Mass Effect 3's ending can finally get the resolution or continuation that they need. It wouldn't be Shepard's end, and Shepard's story would still continue. And if Shepard isn't brought back, fans of closure can keep their headcanons and choices with how Shepard's life went post Mass Effect 3. Personally, I think this is the most likely scenario, with Shepard only being mentioned in name and memory. Another question we have to ask when asking if Shepard will return is, will our beloved companions also need to return with Shepard? What happened to our companions post Mass Effect 3? What happened to Shepard's love interest? Would you even want to bring Shepard back without their companions or love interest anyways? These are all questions that fans have all had time to theorize on and fill in their own answers. Shepard doesn't exist as a single entity. Part of their greatness is their dynamic and relationship with the entire crew. Bringing back Shepard without their love interest would also be really disappointing to fans as well. So while we know Liara is for sure coming back, we don't know if any of the other companions are. Any human, Turian, Quarian, and Solarian companions wouldn't be alive with the time jump. Personally, I feel like you can't bring back Shepard without the entire original crew, because you know what they say,
there's no Shepard without Vicarion.
Fans have also expressed interest in seeing Shepard return in an Anderson mentor-like role, and we've actually already seen BioWare do this in the past, with Hawk returning from Dragon Age 2 to Dragon Age Inquisition. Overall, I think it's pretty jarring for fans to see their own protagonist not be their character, because they couldn't choose their dialogue or personality traits. And when Inquisition came out, there was definitely people who didn't like this choice. I feel like bringing Shepard back without being the player character, and without having that autonomy over them, would have this same issue. So could fans actually be happy with a non-playable Shepard if it meant that they could see Shepard again, but with it most likely being different from their own canon Shepard? Another big aspect of Shepard's return, aside from the story, is that Shepard would not look like the Shep we know now. The original trilogy was made for an older engine, with older graphics. Even the updated Legendary Edition, while it has been updated, is still dated with the current possibility of video game graphics. So far, Liara looks amazing in the new trailer, but could they capture our original Shepard in a new engine? According to BioWare's job listings, BioWare is looking for developers with Unreal Engine 5 experience for their team. This means the next Mass Effect game is most likely going to be running on the Unreal 5 game engine. The first Mass Effect game, which released in 2007, and the remaster are both on Unreal Engine 3, meaning the two games will have different game engines. Assets can be imported from 3 to 5, but everything would need to be updated, reanimated, and retextured, etc. We would not be getting the same character customization and wouldn't have the same options, and inevitably our Shepard wouldn't look the same. This was actually something that happened with bringing Hawk from Dragon Age 2 to Inquisition and having two separate character customizations on two separate engines. Hawk, especially default Hawk, just didn't look the same. So while they could potentially include a character customization with similar features, it would still look entirely different with the new engine upgrade and most likely couldn't have a direct character import. Ultimately, the technical aspect, in my opinion, is the least important aspect, but is still something to think about. Another technical aspect that is going to be interesting to see is if they can and will carry our choices over from the previous games, or if we'll see more canonized choices being made for us. BioWare actually has the Mass Effect archives where you can customize all of your playthroughs for import. You can choose pretty much every major choice and go in depth into who your Shepard was, from their class to their backstory, and while it isn't very useful right now, hopefully when Mass Effect 5 finally releases, we'll be able to import our choices and have them matter in the next game. It also has some really beautiful artwork, so if you haven't looked through it, I'll go ahead and link it below. It seems like BioWare has the technology to carry over our choices, but can that apply to capturing the magic of Commander Shepard from the original trilogy? I asked fans on Twitter if they want Shepard to return, which you can look through all the replies in the link below, but I was surprised to see a majority of people actually responded with no. Several people expressed concern regarding BioWare overriding their choices at the end of Mass Effect 3 if an ending was made canon, and some fans also expressed wanting a new hero or to see the return of their writer. A lot of people also think that Shepard should return to see their efforts in a post-Reaper world, while some fans think Shepard should remain gone in whatever ending they had decided for their own Shepard. Making this video honestly made me a little bit more pragmatic and maybe a little pessimistic about Shepard's return. Of course, anything is a possibility with good writing, but should they even bring back Shepard? And if they wanted to, could they even get past all the hurdles to actually make it happen? I also just want to clarify that I love Shepard. I have never connected with a protagonist the way that I connected with my FemShep, and I would love to see them return, if it could be done right. Maybe the galaxy is really ready for a new hero, or maybe we will see the return of Shepard. I just hope that whatever they decide can fill the shoes that the next game needs filling. Commander Shepard was and still is pretty revolutionary and is BioWare's strongest protagonist. There are some seriously big shoes to fill here. I think part of Andromeda's shortcomings was that a lot of people were expecting Shepard 2.0, whether unrealistic, unfair, or not, and that is something the next Mass Effect team will have to consider when making this game. So what do you think? Should Commander Shepard return, and how? Could your Shepard actually come back? If you stayed through the whole video, thank you so much for watching. This is all new to me and I'm still trying to get the hang of it, but let me know in the comments your thoughts and who you would want to see as our next protagonist for the next Mass Effect game.